on. Hello, OCD going. Okay, so here we are again, Vicki. Thank you for coming
Thanks
to
for having
talk
me.
again with me. So we're gonna have to call this the Vicki and Krista show.
Uh-huh.
And so today we thought we would talk about caregiving, and caregiving during the holidays is a big thing because we're all probably stretched thin today as caregivers. And you have been an advocate for people for years taking care of their loved ones and have been involved in treatment teams and treatment planning with helping when a person has dementia. But also you've seen more than not the caregiver. And I worked with you in that setting and I saw the caregiver and they were just spent.
It's overwhelming. Caregiving can be overwhelming for sure from what I've seen. And I've kind of been blessed to help guide caregivers, as I've gone through my career. There's lots of different types of caregivers. I think we're all caregivers in a lot of ways. There's children caring for their small or not. Okay, sorry, we're gonna have to cut that part out.
Children taking care of their parents.
Children taking care of their parents is a big one. And
And
that's what we both kind of experience now. All of my grandparents are deceased. But I know there was a time when you were really taking care of your grandparents and from a distance. How was that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Vicki. I do remember calling you when my grandfather, he broke his hip and he had to have hip surgery. And both of his hips they did. And my grandmother wasn't ambulating well because she had a sciatic nerve issue and she was just not able to help him at all. So I ended up going down there and just really seeing all the things they needed. And it was kind of scary because they hadn't gotten their hair cut. They hadn't been cleaning the house. And so I went down there and started doing all these things. I still had my kids at home. My kids were still living at home. My blended family, even then, Andreas would be home and Connor would be home on the weekends and I would have to go. And sometimes I didn't know what to do if I had the time to get everything done. And my mom also helped, so that was helpful that she could help. But they both ended up needing a lot of care because of surgeries and medical issues. But I was exhausted when I would come home after that, driving there 6 hours, driving back. And so caregiving involves an emotional toll too, because Grandpa wouldn't move to be closer to us because he had lived in Kansas City his whole life. And Grandma wanted to come be with us. And so they were at odds about it. And so it was just stressful. It was very stressful, Vicki. So yeah, taking care of Grandpa from a distance was challenging for sure.
Because you're really an example of the sandwich generation, but it's like a stacked sandwich because you had your grandmother and you weren't necessarily taking care of your mother at that time. She was helping you. Luckily, you had that support, which is super nice.
Yeah.
But then you had kids that you were taking care of. So, I mean, it's multi-layers of caregiving that you were experiencing.
It was.
So caring for your kids, caring for your grandparents, caring for your parents, aunts, uncles. I mean, we have extended family. So many people care for their extended family.
Yeah, because some of them didn't have children, and so they didn't, or their children aren't available to aunts and uncles, or they didn't have kids, and so they rely on their nieces and nephews, or extended family.
I kind of see that now. I have a good friend who has an aunt who is 103 and didn't have children.
Oh, wow.
And so she actually lives in a state much further, and there's 4 sisters that all kind of help care for this aunt throughout the year. They try to make sure they're back and forth, fairly frequently. But it's stressful not being there. And stubborn. We all kind of want to live our own lives, right? So your grandparents didn't want to move, and they had the autonomy to do that. And her great aunt doesn't want to move either.
Does she
so-
drive, by the way? Does she drive?
Not currently, but she was still driving, I believe, at 100 years old.
Oh,
So,
man. Yeah.
and only because she's so physically declined, she just physically can't drive anymore. But cognitively, she's still pretty intact. So she's making her own decisions,
Wow.
and that's
103.
challenging.
103, Vicki, that's wild.
Yeah, yeah.
Grandpa was 96 when he passed, and he was still driving. And that was a huge worry too, but I couldn't control it, and neither could my mom. And so we had that stress emotionally to worry. So we were worried, Vicki.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
worried about him hurting someone else, him, getting hurt. How many kids worry about their parents driving when they're at the age where they really shouldn't be, and they're so scared to take away that license, and the doctors are, say they will, but then they still drive.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can take someone's license away; they're still going to drive. I mean, I've seen that multiple times with individuals, older individuals. I mean, we see it with people who have their license legally taken away at younger ages. They still drive; it doesn't stop them. But yeah, that's a challenge. Driving is another one, and it causes stress on you as the caregiver. I mean, and it's a lot of emotional stress, right? What if something happens, just like you said?
Yeah.
The other group I can kind of think of that's really, I hear it more and more, is adults or parents caring for their unemployed adult children. Now, they have so many adult children that are moving back into the home that there's an additional caregiving burden on that. Maybe not so much physically, but financially.
And emotionally, because they're probably worried about their future.
Oh, yeah. And not only their kids' future, but their own retirement, I would assume.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Are they going to be able to make it financially? And what if they need more care, whether in the home or in a long-term care setting? Yeah.
Gosh, there's so many aspects to the stress that go into caregiving and the stress that can come with it. What I witnessed working at the hospital when we had Alzheimer's patients and Parkinson's and dementia and stroke victims, and their spouses were taking care of them, and the spouses were depressed and anxious, and they looked horrible. Like they'd walk in and they would not be taking care of themselves. They were underweight, or they just looked like their health was declined. So I feel like I saw my grandfather's health decline when he was taking care of my grandma. And I think like the lack of sleep. And then that makes you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
It for sure does. Yeah, and there's studies that show that. Lack of sleep make you not clear in your thinking, can make you delusional in your thinking, can actually cause psychosis in your thinking. So sleep is very, very vital. And when you don't have a support system or a limited support system, or you don't let people help you, then you're losing out on sleep. And all of that. So many emotional tolls happen whenever you're caregiving for somebody. And it's super, super stressful. Lots of self-neglect. We see that, and there's studies that show that some caregivers will pass before the person that they're caring for because of all of the
neglect
toll that it takes on you. And there's so many different signs of stress. You see that in your physical and your mental health. I mean, physical can be blood pressure, blood sugar, lack of sleep, like you mentioned.
Not going to your own doctor's appointments. Like stopping. I think Grandpa stopped going to his blood doctor, and he had blood issues, like too much of hemoglobin, and he was supposed to be getting these defusions or whatever they would drain his blood. It was very strange, but the VA
required.
But he couldn't do it anymore, and so I know it compromised his health because he couldn't get there because he was trying to just keep Grandma afloat. I think he was overwhelmed and anxious. That anxiety and depression, I think we're sitting in knowing that, one of them, I mean, he was worried that Grandma would pass, and then he was worried that he would pass, and then he talked about death every time I got on the phone with him. And that was sad for me, because then I'm like, I just felt helpless. I felt really helpless as the caregiver from a distance, even though I'm a counselor. And I know about these things.
You know that when you talk about death all the time, that there's something going on with you emotionally and mentally, right? It's a major symptom of depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And from a distance, I bet that was really challenging because all you can do is encourage people to see their physician and take their medication. And it was just too much for him, it sounded like. I mean, there was not enough time in the day to do it all.
No. They did finally get some home health to come in. The VA paid for like people to come in and clean the house. People came in and would help them prepare meals. They would do some light cleaning. So finally we did get some resources, but it really still wasn't enough. But it was, I mean, something that we did initiate. And I think as long as there's not too much physical lifting, as long as there's not too much, I think, mental and physical health issues, I think people can stay in their homes with help, but they need that like person coming in and checking on them and making sure they're taking their medication, because they forget that they took their medicine and they take too much, or they didn't take it and they thought they took it.
It can be very, very unsafe. Yeah, and it's so hard to tell when that time for them to having just care in the home is not enough, and usually it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
You know, self-neglect, or not awareness, letting people into the home, things like that aren't safe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about, you know, just you guys going down for support and them allowing some support in the home. What kind of things did your grandpa used to do socially? I mean, was he active in anything? And then did you see that kind of wax and wane as he provided care?
For sure. He was involved in the VA, the DAV. Disabled veterans. And he was a president at one point, so he was really active and everybody knew him, and that they did up until the very end, until grandma couldn't get out and walk at all. They would go eat a meal there every week because it's cheap. I mean, it was a very affordable place for them to go have shrimp or chicken night, and they did bingo. But they had a social network there that I think for so many years sustained their social. And grandma went to Bible studies. Grandma wanted to go to church, and that stopped for her when she stopped walking. And so sometimes people would come to the house and visit, bring their dog or bring a pie or something. But I feel like it did dwindle as their health declined.
And then they became, sounds like, more isolated.
Yeah,
socially isolated, and that's depressing.
He cried a lot on the phone, or every time I'd go visit him, he would come back soon, and I wanted to come back soon, but I also had a job, and I had children, pets. You know, I had the responsibility to be at a job. I'm a counselor, and I can't just leave my clients for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And that was before we were doing online sessions.
So you had more flexibility now than then, for sure.
Yeah.
So many decisions. I mean, you had to make decisions as a caregiver for him, and it sounds like he had so many decisions to make as a caregiver for her, but also for himself. I mean, he wanted you back there, and one of the decisions could have been to move closer. And I think at one time you even looked at him moving closer and them moving closer. It's, you know, part of that distress as a caregiver is those big decisions that you're having to make. To let somebody in the house to provide care, to move somewhere else, to let go of that financial savings that you've had, you know, to pay for things.
And he wanted to leave money to the family, and he knew that if he went into care, that would suck it all up. And so I think he didn't tell us this, but I think he just decided to suck it up and stay living in the house, and then they ended up suffering. So I think that happens, don't you?
Oh, I see it happen a lot. Yeah. I'm highly encouraging my parents to spend it all because they earned it. You know, they earned it, and I want them, and that takes burden off of me as a caregiver for them as they get older. if they'll use that money to pay for their care versus me maybe or maybe not getting it down the road. I mean, that's what that money's for. That's the way I look at it anyway. But a lot of times the person with the money really, really wants it to go to their family. And they want that to be a gift or something that is something that they leave. So I see that it's stressful on both sides.
It is, either way.
Financially, very much, emotionally.
Yeah, the financial aspect of long-term care and the financial aspect of even bringing help into your home. I mean, fortunately, Grandpa had VA benefits, but a lot of people don't have that. They have to hire a company to come in and do those things that I was telling you about.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not something that is typically covered under insurance, and most people don't know that.
Medicare doesn't cover it.
They don't cover what's called custodial care. So somebody to come in and cook and clean and drive to the grocery store, do those type of things like that. They'll pay for brief services for skilled need on a brief term basis. But it's not that kind of custodial care that a lot of people are needing.
Yeah.
So how did you manage the stress of caring for your grandpa and for your kids? And I mean, how do you manage your stress? Any tips that you have?
Yeah. Well, as a counselor, I know the benefits to not carrying that burden alone and asking for help. And so I have a therapist. I talk to my girlfriends. I get together with my girlfriends. I exercise regularly. I try to keep my nutrition up. I make sure that I make the time and I carve in the time to keep a balanced life spiritually. I do a lot of praying and meditating, and I write. I mean, I do the things that I encourage my clients to do. Not 100% of the time.
Easier said than done, right?
Not 100% of the time, but I do work hard to stay mindful of that balance. And I know when I'm off balance because I start to get fatigued. And I'm like, okay, it's time to take a Krista day, and that looks like I maybe take a nap. May not be a whole day. Might even just be time. It might be like just little nuggets of time. Reschedule. Maybe I'll reschedule something that I had on my calendar that I didn't really need as much, and I'll plan some kind of walking time or friendship time, because spending time with my friends fills my bucket. And it helps me remember that you gotta play. You gotta have time to laugh, and to me, or going to a concert, or going to a sporting event, like something that has nothing to do with caregiving.
Absolutely.
It's something that like just fills my soul and makes me feel like I am not just a caregiver.
Good.
I enjoy things. There's things I enjoy. So
and luckily you have the ability to do that. So, right now, but there's other people who make it hard. It's hard for them to do that, to get that time away. So there are resources out there. One of the things that we had talked about just earlier today was 988, which is a great resource for anybody having questions, undergoing stress, depression, mental health crisis, or not even in a crisis, just needing someone to talk to. So 988 is a good one. Yeah. And I highly recommend that. I think what you're doing sounds perfect. Trying to do those things, exercise, even if it's just a few minutes. And I know, knowing you, sometimes it's just a 10-minute walk your dogs around the block. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that overwhelming. I've got to do 30 minutes. I've got to do an hour. And then just, trying to take care of yourself. And we're never perfect. I know I like to snack on things that aren't healthy, and we're all going into the holidays right now. So that makes it more challenging. So just being aware. For me, routine, trying to get that sleep. Yeah. We talked about
Push
that.
So to sleep.
And then asking for help. So using those resources, I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to get through the holidays.
I think so.
It's stressful, but we got it.
And I think those reminders of what does keep us balanced, the sleep, the nutrition, the exercise, friendship, and being able to sometimes cancel plans and say no.
boundaries.
Yeah,
Boundaries. Really?
Boundaries.
Yeah. I watched one of my family members very stressed just a couple weeks ago because she didn't feel like she was that good of a friend because she couldn't kind of meet all the needs of one of her friends, of going out, to doing this, to celebrating a birthday, to multiple things. And she just said, I'm so stressed, but every time I need something, I cancel on her. And so it makes me feel like a bad friend. But truly, it's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Because a friend is going to understand
For sure.
that you need that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times we put more stress on ourselves than other people put on us.
Yeah.
And I had heard something the other day that I really kind of liked. It's, would you ever speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself?
Yeah.
And it's like, so some of that negative self-talk is not good for us.
No, we need to check the message we're sending ourselves.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Vicki, I hope that you and I were able to shed some light on caregiver stress and some things that people can do to do some prevention. You're going to have stress. That's just life. But if you can keep a mental attitude of gratitude and a mental attitude of where in my life can I tweak some things to help myself manage this stress better. And maybe you need to also go to the doctor for a checkup. Those are things that help us to manage stress instead of crashing and burning, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to burn out.
I don't want to be the victim of the stress. I want
No.
to be positive and try to get through it, because it's not all the time, right? It's temporary a lot of times, and how you manage it plays a big part.
Yeah. Finding help. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We forgot our